Hello and welcome. This is Jim Carp with Rehmann. I have Mike Deno, our Chief Information Officer, along with me. Mike, can you introduce yourself here real quick?
Hi, Jim. Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Mike Dano, as Jim mentioned, and I'm the CIO for Rehmann, and I'm just happy to be here today to talk to all of you.
Okay, so Mike, basically, you went overnight from 1,000 people in the office. So obviously, Raymond has a lot of people traveling, so there are
Mhm.
people out in the field, and we're used to it. But we flipped a switch, and the next morning, everybody was remote. Can you kind of share a little bit of that experience with us?
Yes, Jim. Everything happened so quickly. We knew that it was very likely that we were going to have people work from home. So we did have a few days to kind of shore things up. So, as example, we looked at things that were important. Do we have enough VPN licenses? Did we have enough bandwidth? Did we have any single points of failure that could hurt our network? What did our inventory look like for our equipment? Were there ways that we could get it to the employees? Um, how about our collaboration tools? What do we have? Do people know how to use them? Do we have the documentation for training? What were the things that we needed to do? We wanted to do a test, quite frankly, and we were able to see at one point that we could get a quarter of the workforce working at home. But then, Jim, just like you said, overnight, all of a sudden, we ended up having over half our workforce at home, and then the following day, three-quarters. So it went that quickly, and we pulled it off. We're very happy that we did, and people, after they really got into it, started working just normally like they were in the office.
All right, yeah. So it was a test by fire.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was.
absolutely. So let's unpack some of the comments that you said there real quick. So you talk about the VPN licenses. So
Sure.
if I'm a business owner, I hear the term VPN, doesn't really
Yeah.
mean a lot to me. Can you break down VPN and then share with me the importance for it?
Sure. VPN, it stands for your virtual private network, and it really provides your employees, when they work remotely, the ability to go through your network in a very secure manner. So that way, nobody is able to steal your information. It's all maintained within that network. So when, of course, with Raymond, security is highly important to us, and that's how we want people to work when they're not in the office. So we wanted to make sure we had enough licenses and that we had enough bandwidth so that when people connected through that tunnel, if you will, that they would be protected. So that was a very key thing for us.
Okay, so when we talk bandwidth, then so you got the VPN and that's your tunnel, and it's
Yes.
encrypted on both ends, so you know that your message can't be uh, basically pulled out and somebody can read it. So now bandwidth, what if we're working out of home, what kind of bandwidth should we have, etc.?
Well, luckily today, and it's a great question. If you have a typical provider that provides broadband, you're going to have enough bandwidth. Technically, they will say something like 25 megabits per second will give you really a high quality. And most all houses today have that, and they have much greater. So it's not necessarily something that people need to be concerned about. Just to give you an example of that, just with that bandwidth alone, Jim, individuals could be watching a couple different Netflix videos, and somebody could be working at the same time, and they're going to be all right. It's those situations that maybe somebody's working remotely out in the country. They might have some satellite or DSL technologies that can be a little challenging. And if you have that situation, I would definitely recommend those individuals get with their IT department to talk through what maybe some strategies could be for them.
I know a lot of people use some of the MiFis, which is your
Yes.
the capability to do that as well. And if you're not familiar with the term MiFi, it's a Wi-Fi over the cellular network. Basically, set it up hotspot.
That's right. That's a really good point too, Jim. And if you're using it, you probably want to be out of your basement, probably on a first or second floor, by a window, of course, and maybe less video would be a good thing as well because you're going to probably get a better quality experience.
Gotcha. Now, single point of failure. You talked about that. What's that and the significance for it?
Well, like in our case, we have many different paths, that we have with our internet, and so we just wanted to make sure that, everything that we have, if something would go down, let's say a communication link or what have you, that we would have another way to move the information and the data across our networks and get people to where they needed to be. So, that's one of the things I wanted my team to look at. Hey, listen, what might go wrong? Could something go wrong? Is there anything we need to show up right now? Even if, as an example, going back to your question about VPN, we have two different VPN providers. Well, so, it probably would not go down, but, it could. So we wanted to make sure that, we had some redundancies in place, Jim, just to increase our chances.
Okay, so we're talking you want to try to secure your network through the VPN. You want to make
Yeah.
sure that you have adequate bandwidth. And just as a side comment too, when we first kicked off at home, I found that my bandwidth was inadequate. So I was able to get a hold of Spectrum and bump it up. Took a couple days. They popped out. We got things going. So, definitely check into that. You might be able to get somebody to come help along those lines. And then I'm hearing you say redundancy. Now that might be a little more difficult right now from that
It is.
single point of failure, but that's something to take into consideration. If you can't get your primary path, what's the alternative that you can take? Okay.
Exactly right, especially maybe for the long term right now,
Hmm.
and if it's going to be a long term right now, get with your providers, your vendors that you have right now, and just kind of, talk it through with them.
Absolutely. Now you talked about the equipment, inventory, deployment.
Yes.
Logistically speaking, probably most people had a lot of equipment already, but subsequent, there's probably been some stuff that's needed to be distributed as well.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that we looked at. How could we, in the short term, get monitors? What do we have left in stock to get people, or soft phones? It's probably becoming a little more difficult right now.
Hmm.
Because in fact, a lot of situations, we probably would have somebody order something from home. If there was a consumable that they needed to have, we probably have to order it through on Amazon or whoever, to get it there quickly, as compared to going through our processes in which something would be shipped to us and then we'd reship it and have delays as we're quarantining boxes, etc.
Yeah, and talk about quarantine. You want to share the strategy that we've deployed as far as quarantining materials coming into the office?
Sure. What we've done is, for documents we have coming in, and for like boxes of, let's say, IT equipment, we're actually putting them in quarantine for 5 days. So we're trying to make sure that they're safe for employees to touch. Our IT personnel, when they were there, they would wear gloves, etc. Just to deal, with that situation. But that creates a delay time then, because if you're
Right.
quarantining something and shipping it and so on, and even when we, quite frankly, for our people who will not be in Raymond much longer, maybe they're an intern, we make sure we let them know too, that if we send any boxes to them, that they're taking good precautions and they wait till they pack anything for their safety.
That's a good idea. So let's switch gears here real quick. Collaboration tools. You mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
What types of tools, if you haven't worked remotely before and you don't have a lot of stuff built up, what tools are out there? What is Raymond deploying? What would you recommend for people to leverage?
Sure. We use several different tools, Jim. We use Skype was our standard. So everybody in our organization uses Skype today. So we use that for video conferencing, for chatting, for phone calls, etc. We also have Microsoft Teams deployed, but we use that more or less for subgroups in Raymond, who are maybe working together extremely collaboratively, so they can share documents, etc. The other tool we went to recently that is we're very happy with is Zoom, and Zoom is a very easy thing to use. And organization that maybe you don't have a Zoom licenses, but you can obtain professional Zoom licenses for not very much money, and then you can host meetings, and anybody then can join those Zoom meetings even if they don't have the license themselves. So that's been a real blessing for us, and that gives you the chat and the video and the ability also to talk to your customers. And that's a real important thing too. Is for organizations to be able to reach out to their customers, and sometimes it's not just audio anymore. Maybe you want that more personal, relational feel, and you might use that technology.
To be able to do it. Yep. Okay, so you and I chatted earlier, and you were talking about reprioritizing projects and doing those different types of things. So,
Yep.
as the world has turned and everything shifted, what have you experienced, and what would you suggest for an organization that's gone from a primary to a secondary strategy as far as projects?
Right. I think you got to look at everything because we don't know when this is going to end, Jim. And so is that project that you have, is it truly something that needs to be done in the near term? Are you able to do that in the near term, and does it still make sense? And so I think you really need to look at your portfolio, and do the things that are critical to the business right now, that give you a return on investment in probably a short order. We're looking at things here that if we can get a return on investment within this year, they're probably a good things to do. Other things that don't fit that window, maybe can be put off. So then, you look at that, you look at your workforce, and then you maybe make the shifts where you need their attention
Yep.
at this moment.
Okay, well, Raymond Technology Services has been doing a whole series of podcasts, and they're going to be out there. We've talked about security, we've talked about bandwidth in a lot more detail than you have. Another one we talked about was business continuity planning. Can you share with us how you've been able to leverage your plan? And I think you had some lessons learned as a result as well.
Yeah, yes, we did. And thanks, Jim. Yeah, we have had a business continuity plan. We have that. We also have a disaster recovery plan, which
Mm-hmm.
is more focused on the technical side, in crisis management plans. In other words, how are we going to be able to communicate in a crisis situation? So we did go back, and we leveraged our business continuity plan, and we had actually a pandemic section in it, which is good. What we learned from our situation, though, of course, is some of the contacts in our document were outdated. So we had to take some immediate action, making sure that we had call trees and methods to know who may be the responsible person for various offices. So that's one of the initial things that we did right away, is making sure that we had those communication paths done. Now, when we go back, right, that's something we're going to look at again.
Yep.
We got to look at the long term, and probably say, okay, you never maybe envisioned working like this for this long, but now that this is a reality, let's make sure that we are going to be even better for the next time.
So like kind of summing up the near term here then. So as a business owner, if you weren't prepared and you don't have a lot of people working remote, the things you want to consider is the VPN, making sure you have the bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
try to get that redundancy if you can eliminate the single points of failure, figure out ways to distribute the equipment back and forth, make sure that your team's up to speed. And then really you have to, from a whole other perspective too, is make sure it's secure. And we haven't really
Exactly.
touched a whole bunch on that security today. And by the way, RTS has a whole podcast devoted to how do you make sure everything's secure. So that's the near term. That's like the triage for today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going forward, you kind of tip this up here, Mike. You were saying when we go back, what are your thoughts? If I'm a business owner and I make it through this and I'm coming back into the office, what are some of the first things that I should be doing as I look to the future?
Well, yeah, thank you, Jim, for asking that. I think that it's really looking at your modernization strategy across your entire spectrum of things you're doing, in information technology for your business. So what I mean by that is, look at your networking infrastructure plans and your model. Look at your collaboration tools and your communication tools. Um, Look at your software. Is it in the cloud? Is it software as a service? Can you use that software working from anywhere? Look at your mobile device strategy. Do you have the laptops, the mobile capabilities for your workforce to work anywhere? Do they know how to use them? And then your security controls, Jim, you touched upon it. I know you'll have other podcasts, but it's highly important that you're teed up to be able to work anywhere, and that your people, especially working mobilely, are very aware of the various phishing and hacking attempts that are out there, and they're able to work in the remote world as well. So those are some of the first things I think that I would do, and that's going to take some time, Jim. I mean, those things that I just mentioned are not easy,
Yep.
but you got to start.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We're all in this together, and from a Raymond perspective, congratulations to you and your team. You put all of us folks in the field up and running. For that, we sincerely appreciate it. And then from a client's perspective, if you have questions, we can definitely help. We can do a lot of this stuff remotely. We've got the Rehmann Technology Services team that's headed up by Larry Andrus and team. If you want to reach out to people, Mike, if people have questions and want to talk to you directly, can you give them your contact information?
Absolutely. Just contact the Rehmann office, and they'll put you in touch with me. Also, you can always send me an email as well. And it's mike.deno@rehmann.com.
Right.
And Jim, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to try to talk with other people out there and maybe give them some helpful hints.
Absolutely. So the main number at Rehmann is 989-799-9580. Again, that's 799-9580. You can ask for Mike Deno, you can ask for Jim Karp, and ask for Larry Andrus, and they can switch you over to these folks, and we can definitely give you help. Mike, have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, sir.